Blog Talk Radio.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, Executive Producer of the Female Solution Radio Show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, in South Africa, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network. Call 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you. And Grand Rising. Thank you all for joining us on this Wednesday edition of the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And we've got our American Muslim 360 family joining us, and our co-host standing in for Kareem Hamid is Michael Hamid. And we're going to open up the mics in just one moment. And of course, we're going to also welcome. Yes. Well, we are so grateful to have you with us today. Now, we've got to take a quick break. Of course, we are live on Facebook and YouTube through our StreamYard connection. And we're going to just check on a few audio issues because we want to make sure everybody can see and hear. And we've got joining us live from the UK, Zhana, who is bringing to us today a topic she's been talking about. First, we talked about what do men want. Today, we're going to talk what do women want. Today, we're going to talk about what do men want. And we've got a guest, Dr. Obari Cartman, coming in, who's been doing a series of men workshops. And of course, we want your opinion as a man because things have changed. So we're going to take a quick break and come right back. And we invite our audience to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in just one moment. So we just want you to stay with us. And you're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, and we've got us today, Michael Hameen, with the American Muslim 360 family. So pleased that you are with us this morning, and we'll be right back. So stay with us.
Hi,
I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
And we're back.
Yes, we're back.
Female Solution.
Yes, we are back. So excited that you have joined us and you're listening to the voice of Michael Hamid, standing in for our co-host Kareem Hamid on the American Muslim 360 channel. And we're excited because we get a chance to talk about a topic that a lot of women want to know, and we can hear from someone who knows. We'll be talking today with Zhana, who'll be joining us shortly, but we've asked a question today. What do men want? And a lot of the confusion about our relationships comes with the fact that we're doing things differently in this generation than in the past. Relationships are forming differently. People are having different expectations, and then it changes from culture to culture. Depending on where you are in the world, men may expect different things from women and may have been prepared differently even for the process of finding a mate. And sometimes the expectations on both sides are just unrealistic. So, Brother Michael, I'm going to ask you the question because, for a year, Brother Kareem had held a men-only discussion, which was really helpful to us. We had every fourth Wednesday, we had the men have conversations about various topics, and we, the women, we just were quiet and listened. We didn't call in, we didn't make comments. We just listened so that we could learn and understand, because we realized we really didn't know. And you have a lot of women who are raising sons without the fathers in the home. And so they really don't understand what men go through when they go from that transition to boyhood to manhood. They really don't know how to teach them what a man should know, because we're not men. And then they don't understand when relationships don't work, because they don't understand why men get frustrated and angry at the things we do, because we don't know. So today is an opportunity for us to learn. So, in your own words and with your own experience, when men are looking for someone that they would really consider as a life partner, someone they can bring into their family, what really do they want?
That's an excellent question. And we have the courtship and marriage program here at AM 360 on last night. And in the discussion, it came up that both men and women in today's clouded and cluttered communications, the mind is filled with all kinds of ideas and promotions and appeals to buy this or look at that. The environment doesn't share with us what men and women are, basically.
No, it doesn't.
A man basically wants respect. And you notice that when young men go into puberty, well, I notice, and other men are aware of it, but oftentimes mothers and females are not aware. The frequency changes because at that puberty mark, the young man is ready for what we used to have as rites of passage. He's ready to hear the voice of men and understand how to be a man as that puberty age reaches, the chemicals and whatnot. And oftentimes women aren't aware. The old school women were aware that they had to find, if they didn't have a man immediately in their household, they had to find a man, a male model of how to be a man, because those women understood they can't teach a man how to be a man. A lot of problematic issues in terms of these young men being triggered for violence and causing death because they're in an emotional environment. They're not in the environment where men teach, even in terms of their frequency. They teach a stability. They teach, men at the base are looking for knowledge and information on how to make improvements on themselves and their environment. Women at their base are looking to communicate. They transfer the culture. They the sociability. One of the translations of the Holy Quran speaks of the woman's role as the wombs that bore them. Imam Wadi Muhammad translated that idea of womb as female entrusted ties of relationship. And at the base, the woman is looking for security for herself and those children that come into the relationship of marriage. This thing has been turned upside down, where women are more afraid of marriage than they are raising a child by themselves.
Yes.
And what they're not aware of, the child needs more than just Nike shoes and that kind of paraphernalia, a house over their head. The child needs that nourishing. And if the woman is only looking at the provisions in terms of the physical provisions, she may miss the sensitivity that's in her, that's entrusted to her to nurture that child, the internal makeup of that child. And then once she does that, at puberty, she turns the male over to the men, and she continues with the females. This thing has been turned upside down. I'll stop there.
Yes, most definitely. You mentioned a thing that I'm finding quite shocking And that is the fact that women will readily have a child even when there's no solid partnership with the man, and not realizing you can't buy what a man provides in terms of the emotional support. I've had so many women friends who've raised sons by themselves, and then the sons reach a certain point in life, maybe 14, 15, 16, and things just start going haywire. They can't they can't control him, they can't guide him, he won't listen. And they say, I don't understand. I gave him everything. But then you ask, well, where's his father? Well, we're not together. Okay, well then you didn't give him everything, because you can't give him what the father can give him, and that's what he's missing. So
That's right.
so how did that happen, where I don't know if it just became a thing during the, I don't know, the welfare era, because we talked about this a lot, the whole government intervention into our families when people needed financial support. And other ethnic groups, they got financial support, but for some reason, African American women were the only ones required to not have a man in their life in order to get government assistance. So there was this rash of, we all saw the movie Claudine. You got to hide the fact that you got a man in your life. You got to hide any extra things he gives you because the government's helping you. So that means, they're demanding that you not have a man, you not be married. I mean, it's such a mess, and it destroyed at least 4 generations from what I can see, because it seems like this trend started back maybe in the 60s, and all of a sudden it's become the norm.
Before then,
I'm sorry, what was that?
Before then, before that time markation that you mentioned, the 60s, the marital rate between African American men and women was among the highest.
Yes,
in America.
It was.
Feminism came in, and what you mentioned are aspects. But Dr. Latifa, we have been struggling as a group, African Americans or Black folks. We've been struggling. We've been struggling to be stable in terms of our relationships since the time Negroes were made in chattel slavery. There never was a Negro until chattel slavery appeared, where we were disconnected from our origins, our language, and so, those foundational things of culture. We were disconnected with that, and they put into us a mindset to serve other people's interests. And we've been struggling in spite of the social conditioning and what Ida B. Wells identified as really terroristic tactics to keep the African American community in the place that was assigned to them in terms of this caste system that we have.
Yes. So I think that is still plaguing us. The whole economic condition, whereas, and I'm not playing the victim here, because I think it's time for us to get out of victim mode and take responsibility for the choices we're making. But you're right. This is
absolutely,
this is something that's been generational. And before the 60s, you're right. We had a very high rate of marriage. It was culturally expected. And most of us who grew up in like the neighborhood I grew up in, very stable working community. Most households, 2-parent households, people, both parents worked. I mean, that was okay. You had some that were housewives, but most couples were working couples. They both had regular jobs, and the whole neighborhood was kind of built around parents going to work, children going to school. We went to school in walking distance of our home. So it was a stable environment, and couples understood how to work together. And something fell apart in a lot of places where that didn't exist, or where when the places where the men were taken out of the community is where the culture of marriage fell apart. And my understanding, especially when the housing projects were built, and they were low income housing, and it first started out with families were moving in. You know, you had husbands, like good times. You know, you had the father and the mother moving in. So it wasn't like we started out with broken families. Somewhere in that process of us looking at government assistance, the requirement became, well, if you're going to have subsidized housing and get assistance, then that means you don't have a husband that's providing for you. So if he's there, then you can't get the money. I mean, that's kind of what happened. And government assistance was never supposed to be a way of life. But if you remove the family structure, then that's what happens. And so the whole thing with the crime, the violence, the young men without direction, all of that erupted. And then you get this jail culture, because if you're trying to survive in ways that the society has decided is illegal, then that feeds a prison system that is, of course, a business in America. And we just continue to feed that business, and the foundation is the fatherless homes. So, you know, I've been talking about this for years. Matter of fact, that was kind of how this show was launched, with the book that I wrote, The Female Solution, and trying to reel women back into the realization of our role as the foundation of the family, which means you have to know how to select somebody who's going to be that life partner in raising your children. And every species on the planet, a female, understands that role. It's like our understanding has been broken because we've been fed this idea, well, I don't need a man. And like you say, the feminism thing, that was such a confusion for us. Now, I understand women have some anger about things that we've endured in, you know, abusive relationships, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. Throwing marriage out as an institution or as a lifestyle, as a culture, that was not the solution. And unfortunately, too many of us went for that.
Yeah.
So do you find that
there's some unspoken things as well?
Yeah, lot of unspoken
there's
things.
Some unspoken things.
So
that, one of them is the trauma when both parents had to leave from these projects, and when single family mothers raising young boys, it was something that developed in the poor community, the project community and other places. This gang rape mentality, you know, develop. It's connected with the need to have power and control, you know, and that's one of the aspects of these young men killing one another as well. You know, this like I mentioned, the foundational focus for the man. Man is very simple, you know, requiring respect and appreciation. And if you exaggerate that need for respect, you're going to find a young man killing somebody over stepping on his tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And maybe even less than that.
Yes.
And this, look, you know, we got Dr. Phil. We're more connected, even if Black folks are not in treatment or therapy. By and large, we are hearing the message of therapy and disconnection, anxiety, and a lot of terms, you know, speaking to our human condition and how we're made up psychologically, you know. So we need to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
We've got our executive director, and we invite the callers to press 1 to come into the conversation. We've got our executive director, Marsha Nala Abdullah, on the line with, and here she is. Welcome.
Hi, well, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Michael and Naima.
Yes.
Pause there. And they're listening. Yes. Praise be to Allah. I love the conversation, and I want to tie on to what has been said. It's for me. I would say sometimes easy to spurt out some words, and so I don't want to be guilty of that. I need to come. I need to come from the faith-based process that the human being is connected to, and see the problem. As you said, we don't want to cry victim. But I look at the severing of the ties, and praise be to Almighty God. As we seek Almighty God's help, then what is God to us? Truly, what is God to us? And where has that been placed in our lives? As well as the young men, they see the feminine in the mother, and because I had the experience of being in a household where there was no physical father in the household, but I did have to understand that there were men in the community. There were my brothers. There was this overarching process that was there always, and that was the belief in Almighty God, and that God, they couldn't grab and put God under the shirt. As my sister was telling my mother, a little joke, if I may tell you, that the mother told the son that he could not have this red bicycle unless he did such and such and such, and that God sees everything that he does. And when she said that, he took what his belief in God is, the Virgin Mary being the mother of God, and he got the item, put it under his coat, ran upstairs, had it on his coat, and said a prayer that God, if you want to see your mother again. Now, to some, that it is funny initially, but you understand the thinking of the child is that God is in reach. God is that the child can control God from an object point of view. And so we stepped away from, and I say we entirely, because the prayer is time right now in prayer that we can be, whether it's 5 times, 3 times, or 1 time. Prayer is necessary to the God that has no image that we can control. Now I'll stop right there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What do you think, Dr. Naima?
Well,
What do you think about that?
I truly do agree that our base has to be spiritual, which means we understand we're all connected. It's not one person who can make a decision and not understand how their behavior is affecting everybody. And this is the guidance that we're given from our Creator. We're all one body. So we have to teach that and exemplify that. So the decisions that I make are going to affect not just me, but everybody I'm connected to. And that's what we've been missing a lot, even in our decisions or the way we raise our children, the way we even teach our children when it comes to their responsibilities once they reach puberty. Your sexuality is not just your personal business, it's how you're going to affect the entire world. Because if you're opening the door through which someone comes through you and you're not prepared to parent them, then the rest of the society suffers, because now you have a child that is going to feel unloved, unwanted, unguided, and they're going to create havoc and chaos because you were not conscious when you made a personal decision. And we have to teach these things from the perspective of what is going to happen as a result of this decision that you're making, whether it's to be intimate with someone or whether to end the relationship with someone, or rather it is how you're going to interact with the other person's family, because you need all of the members of the family when it comes to a child. And we're not seeing spiritually how our teachings of love, honor, and respect are affecting the children we're bringing into the world. So then when we look at what the society has produced and what people are experiencing with our children, who can we point to as the culprits but ourselves? We made this mess. We brought them into unloving environments where parents had not agreed that they were going to provide a home together and be in partnership in raising this child and bringing the rest of their family to love and nurture this child. We made these choices. And I'm not blaming women, but the point I've always been making, we are at the ground level. We're at the foundation of this decision. So if we choose incorrectly, it destabilizes the entire society.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Does. And there are two things. Anytime a human being is willing to suffer the consequences for their actions, there's not a lot you can do with that individual until they get so far out of hand that you have to incarcerate them or kill them, depending on the level of their following that spiritual urge within them. Secondly, and I mean no disrespect, but I'm going to take this focus with the Bible, the Bible message of the fullness of the Gentiles. Now, as I understand it, that's the name that identifies basically Caucasian or European ethnicity. And when you have a situation where color is used, and I know you heard, I remember Dr. Lowry at the benediction of President Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
He pointed to this issue in his benediction of, if you're white, you're right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, you're mellow. But if you're black, get back.
I remember
that was a way of us describing years ago this issue of color superiority and race identification, which are both false constructs. And we see the Karen and Ken phenomenon, wanted to control public spaces, public spaces. And it is a scourge on us as a country and the world. The establishment of color superiority, which has no basis or foundation in Mother Nature. A black banana is just a overripened, about to be spoiled banana. There's no superiority in that.
Absolutely.
And you can go on and on with that.
Absolutely.
Maggots are white, but you know what we think about maggots and flies.
No.
So, it's really damaging us because in that equation, it speaks to African American or black inferiority, and we've got to deal with this in terms of how it affects the souls of people, and the young children having this kind of presence or focus in terms of religion. It sets up this dynamism. Well, look, I'm not going to be a sheep and follow this idea. I'm going to be a wolf, and I'm going to demand and take what I want. The foundation of criminality and a lot of things comes from this fighting back against these false constructs of race and color superiority. In my opinion, I think there's enough evidence for that. White Jesus. When I was a young child in the projects, I had my own bedroom for a time. There's 5 of us, but I was the oldest and I was the first. And my bedroom was facing the parking lot.
Mm.
And when the cars would pull up, the light of the cars at night would flash on this white Jesus. Looked like he was coming up out of the ground.
That's creepy.
It was so spooky And I got little T. I know I got little T trauma from that. I know I did.
Wow.
We didn't have no white presence in the project at that time.
Oh my!
So I
the
know I
things
was
we
traumatized.
did.
At least the little T, you know.
Wow.
And others have experienced, things like that. How do we relate? What is it? What does the soul respond to? How does the soul respond? And this has been going on for hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years.
We can identify. You can Google. You can go to Reverend Google and Google when the identification of white people, when the identification of race came in. And I'm saying Reverend Google because that idea is connected more so with the church than other religions. Buddhism doesn't recognize this. Well, you've got the Hindu people with a serious color consciousness situation with what they call a caste system, the outcasts, the underclass, they're what?
The untouchables.
What do they identify
the darker ones. Well, we got to talk about that because that the damaging effects of the color caste system, it's affected our relationships. And I had a friend that said they were told all the time growing up, get you a light-skinned woman. But we got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how that color caste system has affected us. We'll be right back after this quick break. We want you all to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment to talk about what do men want. And we've got Michael Hamid joining us, filling in for our co-host Kareem Hamid at American Muslim 360. We'll be right back. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
Oops. And let's see, one more.
Don't worry.
about finances, family, health, job, relationships? Are you in pain? Do you feel stuck? If you answered yes to any of these questions, help is available. Don't worry, you're not alone. It's part of the human process. You only feel this way because you haven't mastered the voices in your head. No hype, just down to earth, solid, workable tools and techniques that you can practice daily. It's really food for the soul. Whether you want to learn how not to worry about anything, reverse type 2 diabetes, publish a book, promote your product or service, or just make extra money. Take advantage of the deal of the day. Go to zeldaspeaks.com or call 312-409-6619. Mention promo code The Female Solution and get free shipping. That's zeldaspeaks.com or 312-409-6619. Stop worrying today. Visit zeldaspeaks.com.
All right. We are back.
We're back.
Yes. All right. Fantastic. And if you're just joining us, of course, we are live on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. You can see and hear us. We're on Blog Talk Radio, and we're also on the On Air Radio Network. And joining us live from London, we've got Zhana with Success Strategies with Zhana. We're so excited for her to be with us. She'll be with us every first Wednesday of the month, bringing us exciting topics. And today we've been talking about what do men want? So, Zhana, thanks so much for being with us this morning with Success Strategies. So, Zhana, are you able to hear us? All right, let me see.
Is she muted?
No, make sure you unmute. I'm not sure why we're not getting her voice. Yes, make sure you're unmuted.
Turn up the volume.
Yes. Yes, we should be able to hear her. For some reason, we cannot. Maybe her call dropped. We'll
Okay.
we'll be looking for her in a moment. And at the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by Dr. Obari Cartman, who is the author of the book Ladies Man, and he has been doing a series of men workshops and talking to young men and helping them with the process of making that transformation to manhood. He conducts a rites of passage program. We'll hear more from him at the 8 o'clock hour in determining what is the impact of men today and how they are affected, many of them growing up in these single parent female headed households. But Brother Michael, you mentioned the thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Dr. I have noticed, and this has been for at least over a decade, but I've noticed, and it's a dynamic that we have to deal with and find a resolution for. I've noticed how the role of man in advertisements and on television, there's a specific role of the man in society that's historical, to protect and to defend, to support the socialization process that the mother she performs. And because of this focus on gender and sex identification, we see an influence of effeminate manhood
Yes.
being put before us, and it's a real challenge because we've got some challenging internal and external things going on that are critical issues, and we need men. You know, we need men in terms of the identification that has historically been set. You know, what is it? What's that the song say? I just drink muddy water and sleep in a hollow log. You know, manhood that's willing to deal with, the nastiness, hunting game and finding strategies to bring down the bear, and animals that are more fierce than me, that have that ability. And it's problematic. I understand that there are exceptions to the rule, but when we push these exceptions onto our children in a way where their brains haven't developed, we know about brain development, and human development. When the brain hasn't developed enough to get there, and the only way that you can have a society that is, I'm just going to say the word, homosexual related, and that's both men and women, connection with the men going with men and women going with women. It's problematic for the children being raised in that environment. And when you give permission, you give permission for a child to have a choice in terms of, okay, as a boy, I wasn't, but my brother, he had kind of a fleshy chest. It could look like breasts,
Mm-hmm.
And if he had made the decision, well, God made a mistake. I'm supposed to be a girl. It's that's too soon in terms of the youngster's development for a child to make those kind of decisions. And I worked with a brother a lawyer in Selma, Alabama, when I lived there. He was working with a sexual abuse organization. And the stories were horrific of children being abused before even consciousness came on. Babies being sexually abused, And they had no idea that there was an interruption in their innocence. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have any idea because the consciousness wasn't there at the early age that they were violated. So, I mean, these, we're going to have to work these things out. God permitted them, so we got to work them out. But they're very challenging.
Yes. We did a whole.
We've got a caller here.
Oh, okay. We'll open the lines for the caller, and we'll open the lines for the caller, and because we did a whole show on gender confusion this past Monday, which a lot of people were a little bit surprised, but that's something that's becoming an increasing issue. And we also have talked about the feminization of men, and there everything from hormones in the food that's having an impact to the social environment. And when you can't have a healthy representation of masculinity, then all other kinds of unhealthy representations of masculinity arise, where there's a lot of gender confusion, and some of it's biochemical, some of it's social, some of it's as a result of trauma.
Yes, there's a saying that hard times produce strong men, and easy times produce weak men. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to maintain the strength of masculinity, of manhood, when you have these soft times. And I like to use this saying that the devil is in the details, and he's certainly busy with the details nowadays.
Yes. Well, let's take that caller and get their thoughts. And you're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And our filling in for our co-host is Michael Hamid at AM 360. And we've got a caller on the AM 360 line. Go right ahead.
Where you calling from? Yeah, this is Brother Muhammad from the Prophet Muhammad by the way of Columbus, Georgia. I think that mothers who are under any type of revelational guidance from Almighty God of love and what time period they are still functioning in. Allah has sent this Quran and this way of life of Islam where if the parents, especially the mother, teach it to her children the roles of man, especially if she's married and she has a good Muslim husband there to verify what she's telling her son about being a protector, the maintainer, the different things, and he look at the life of Prophet Muhammad and look at some of the hadiths that deals with man responsibility and women responsibility. It will reset this crazy sensual, seductional type of atmosphere that Shaitan have us growing in. Then we have to realize and accept why Allah said, let her come out of you. Abandon the people. So not only do you regain your proper creative character, you'll create your proper creative intelligence, etc., etc. And you pass it on to your children because this is something that you have to work your way out of, like Ibrahim had to walk out the fire and not get burned. Yeah. And people never ask, well, how deep was Ibrahim in the fire? He came from the core of the world of Shaitan and walked out through the freedom in his search to find Almighty God Allah and what was his whole purpose. And I think, again, education is very important, but as long as we do not separate this favor from Allah, from all the other ways of life that are out here, that is seducing our children through our women. They're making our women question what Allah has made clear in Revelation is a hint to her. Because both sexes, as we know, come out, and both genders and all these things come out of the woman. And if the woman teaches her and raises her children according to what Allah says in the Quran and her love for Allah and her love for Prophet Muhammad, and then when by the time he gets to the age of 12, then the father of the good Muslim, Muhammad, I want to introduce an idea to the audience. And again, it goes back to spirituality. And I mean no disrespect, but we know, and history rewards all research, we know the history of the disrespect for woman in her role and the unequal kind of focus that has been given. There was a time in history connected with religious philosophy or ideology that the woman didn't have a soul. And that the woman was the accomplice to the devil in bringing humanity down, bringing man down. So those ideas had not properly been dealt with, and they still plague us. I was looking at the history of Nanny, what's her middle name? Nanny Burroughs. And I love the quote. You just Google her. Nanny, I can't think of her middle name. But Nanny Burroughs, you can pull that up. And she had this philosophy for young women in particular in terms of education. And her philosophy was that of, how did she say it? Do uncommon work do common work in an uncommon way. And I love that. I really like that. But, because of the sensitivity about people's freedom of religion and other ideas, people call America a Christian church. So this idea in religion has not really been given the seriousness. But we see that the women are coming into positions of leadership in such a way to kind of clean up the mess, so to speak. You know, and I'll stop there. And thank you, Muhammad.
Yes.
Press 1 to come back and press 1 to go out, and then press 1 to come back. Dr. Latifa?
Yes. You know, I understand. I understand his. Uh-oh. I think he hung up. You might need to disconnect his line.
Is that on your end?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You figured it out. Okay.
Yeah, somebody hung
Praise
up.
God.
Yes.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Well, We've got another caller. What's your thoughts before we go to the call?
I mean, I understand his zeal.
Go ahead.
And everybody who's following a religion feels like that if people just follow their religion, they'd be okay. But as you pointed out, there have been a lot of distortions in all religions, and they've all been very hostile toward women, which is why a lot of women have turned away from religion. It doesn't mean they've turned away from God, but they've turned away from belief systems that say, number one, you brought evil into the world, or number two, you're second class and lower in value in the eyes of God, and all these things that are denigrating to women. And until we are able to comprehend that there is no hierarchy in God's kingdom, we are all loved and valued by our Creator. Until we are able to understand that on a spiritual level, then all our belief systems are going to be skewered toward justifying mistreatment of women. And that has happened globally. So we're suffering the effects of that. So part of what happened even with the feminist movement was an attempt to undo some of that hostile treatment of women. But anytime you meet hostility with hostility, that doesn't solve the problem. So what evolved is a lot of hostility toward men. and we're seeing a lot of that. So even when you mentioned earlier about the feminization of boys, well, if women have hostility toward men, what signal are they giving to their sons? I don't like your masculinity. I'm only going to accept you if you act like a girl. And that happens in the school systems. The little girls who are nice and quiet and sit down and fold their hands, they're valued. Boys that have this high energy are treated like they're bad, they're wrong, they're constantly punished and reprimanded for being boys. Because boy energy is different than girl energy. But if all the schools have female teachers who disregard male energy or condemn it, then what are you telling boys about their masculinity? It's unacceptable. So we have that problem, and not having a balanced understanding of male and female.
We've got Imam Kareem on the line here.
Oh, that is fantastic.
636, come on in. Come on in.
Yes,
Wa alaikum salam.
Everyone. And I want to thank you, Imam Michael Hameen, for sitting in before me on this wonderful broadcast of Female Solution. It's a wonderful platform, and we're grateful to Dr. Naima Latif for having established this platform so we can have substantive, serious conversations. Praise be to Almighty God. Putting the focus back on the family. That is where we're in shambles. We're in bad state. The idea of rugged individualism, the idea of being independent has hurt the human family. I've heard people say, I don't need you for nothing. You know, that independence. In the Christian scriptures, in some translations, it identifies for us the help meet. M-E-E-T. Not M-E-A-T, dear brothers. M-E-E-T. The help meet. You meet the help that you're going to need. Both partners. We cannot live independent. We didn't bring ourselves here. You know, to even come into existence, it required other people, our mothers and midwives and fathers. So that idea of independence, we must get away from that. That has truly harmed us. It has destroyed our family, our business life, in almost every area of our life. We need one another. We need one another. And especially the male and the female. God is sending a message to us in identifying her as a help meet, M-E-E-T, that you meet the help that you're going to need, dear sir. You know. So if we can address the idea of overblown independence, I think that will help us in understanding what has happened to the family and our communities. Thank you once more, Michael Hameen, for sitting in for me. And assalamu alaikum, Sister Naima.
Wa alaikum salam. Good to hear your voice. Thank you so much for chiming in today. Absolutely. Well, you know, that's a good question, though. But
I'll leave there now.
well, we'll see you next week. Yes, and that was the voice of our co-host Kareem Hamid. We got to take another quick break and come back, and we will be joined by our guest, Dr. Obari Cartman. I'm going to bring in our guest, Zhana from London. We're trying to bring her sound into the conversation. And she's been talking to men all over the world and come to the realization that culturally, it does change from place to place. But you brought up a couple of things that we want to talk about after the break. And one of them is that colorization that has had such an impact on our self-esteem and therefore our relationships. And we're going to share a few comments that have come on our Facebook and YouTube channel. And we'll be right back after this break. So we want you all to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in just one moment. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, People are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
And
oh man, I sent the monthly sun bill today. This sunlight is really expensive, especially during this season. I'll probably have to work overtime to pay it.
Well, you better pay it on time. We don't want the sun to go out and we're sitting up here all day in the dark. Wouldn't it be terrible if God charged us for sunlight? Well, thank God, the light and heat from the sun is free. So why are we paying such high bills for the energy we use in our homes? Because we don't know how to use solar energy, the free energy from the sun. You can convert your regular home to a solar energy home and save tremendously on your electric bill. Take a look at your electric bill. Wouldn't you like to reduce or possibly even eliminate that cost altogether? Let one of our solar consultants show you how. Call today, 312-849-3456, and schedule a free consultation. That's 312-849-3456. Hi, I'm Naima Latif. Join me and my co-host Kareem Hamid every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the Female Solution Radio Show, as we explore that relationship that is the foundation for our society, the relationship between men and women, husbands and wives. Join our discussion as we seek to repair broken family ties and rebuild our community. Listen online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to our host. Or you can join us live on Facebook at www.facebook.com/the-female-solution.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif. And as always, we appreciate you. You can call in 515-605-9325, or you can call in our American Muslim 360 line at 515-605-9891, or you can call in on the on-air radio network at 727-731-5192, because we want to hear from you. And today we're talking about, what do men want? We've got a few comments from our viewers. We'll bring up on screen. And
thank you, Michael.
And we've got a comment from, yes, we are back with our American Muslim 360 family. We've got some comments on screen. Viana says, Grand Rising Sister. Thank you, Michael, for your wise words. Yes, see, you're appreciated, brother Michael. Yes. And our Monday morning mindfulness host. Yes. Well, our Monday morning mindfulness host, Zelda, says, Grand Rising, beautiful people, listening and learning. Yes. We're never too old to learn. And, I think that the more we examine what happened and what went wrong, we can kind of help our young people correct some things as they form their relationships. They do acknowledge the fact that we did some things that didn't work very well, and they're willing to change things. We might not like how they change it, but it's necessary that they change it. Well, we've got a guest today that's been talking. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just going to say it's an obligation on us. That's bottom line.
Yes, it is definitely an obligation. And we struggle so much with the confusion that has been such a part of our upbringing and this society. But it is important for us to make some changes. And we've got a guest that has been really a powerful voice in helping us to hear the voices of young men. And if you have a son, you may want to tune on in and even go to his website. I believe it's drobaricartman.com. And one of the things that we've observed is that this generation of young men, they have had to endure a lot of pain and suffering because of our absence of understanding. And sometimes they're angry, and they have a right to be angry because we are, in fact, confused women. And Dr. Obari Cartman has been going through the process of helping young men express their thoughts in his workshops and in his book, realizing that so much of what we're doing is a result of the confusion that we have heaped upon our young boys. All the things we've talked about, everything from the feminization of young men to the removal of the fathers in their lives, to the extreme punitive ways they're treated in the school system. And so now I want to bring to you our guest today, the author of the book, Ladies' Man, Conversations for Young about manhood. And this is what we want to know. What do men think? As we bring to the stage today, Dr. Obari Cartman. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Mama Naima.
Well, we appreciate you so very much. We really do. And I've read the book, of course, and I always recommend it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that too.
But I think that a lot of women, especially the ones who are raising sons by themselves, they make a lot of mistakes, and they're not aware of the impact of their decisions on the lives of their sons. They're like our brother Michael Hameen, who's co-hosting today, has talked about, women think, well, if I buy you things, I bought you everything. Why are you rebelling at age 14, 15, 16? You're not listening to me anymore. You're talking back to me. What is it that you hear from young men? What are some of the common frustrations that young men express?
I would say I heard the word feminization earlier. And I think that there's certainly confusion around roles and principles of manhood. One of the things that I'm also more concerned about, equally concerned about, I'll say, is a infantilization, sort of a lack of maturity and growth. And part of that is an opportunity to connect with roles, responsibilities, worth, power, leadership. And some of that can happen through women, through mothers. I think that it has to be centered around relationships with caring male adults in the young man's life. a lot of the young men that I'm talking to, the conversations we're having, they're having for the very first time. That no one has ever pulled them to the side to just let them know this is what men do. Men don't do that. This is something that boys do, and this is something that men do to distinguish that rite of passage moment. That how do you know I go from one stage to the next? That is a training process. That is not something that happens naturally. And so the frustration comes from being demanded of expectations of manhood, of maturity, of growth, without any guides, without any opportunities to bump against the challenges, without any clear expectations, and not any expectations, because they do get expectations because they see men, they're scrolling, they're looking at the rappers, the athletes, the entertainers, they see men doing things that they think men are supposed to do, whether it's in their community, if it's in the streets, and that they have role models. They are just not the role models that are shaping a positive, productive, principled, grounded version of a manhood that, I don't blame the single mothers for. That is a problem, certainly a system problem that has removed men from the home, but also just a lack of, discipline and clarity amongst the men ourselves. We can blame systems to a certain degree for us not being present, but part of it is just also teaching very early what does it mean to make responsible decisions about having sex, so that we're not having men use sex as a way to relieve stress and to find connection and intimacy, and not be thinking about the consequence, the beautiful opportunities of fatherhood. And so there's certainly lots of missing fathers. There's lots of we need more mentors, and the men that are in place, the coaches, the barbers. We need to have more conversations amongst the men about how do we codify the values, the principles that we need, and instill that and model that, demonstrate that for young men, so that we have a clearer roadmap than they have right now. I'm seeing young men really just making this up as they go along, and not being guided or supported in their process of maturation.
Absolutely. Well, we've got joining us live from London, she'll now be joining us every first Wednesday of the month, Zhana. And we're excited because she's been really talking to men around the world,
Nice.
In other countries, really seeing the differences in cultures. And we know that, like you said, we can only blame systems for so long. At some point, we have to take responsibility. But Zhana's been talking to men from Africa, and of course, they've gone through colonialism and the psychological damage of that. But then also, there is still a connection to understanding that the role of a man is first and foremost performing the duties of the head of household in a family structure. And that's what is often missing with men in this society, the connection of their sexuality with forming a family. And sex becomes recreation, like you say, stress relief, status, all of these things, but it's disconnected from being a husband, father, head of household, provider, maintainer of the community. It's disconnected from that. It's, fun, recreation, status, stress relief, and we had a series of men discussions with our co-hosts over the last year, and a lot of the men said the way they learned about women was, how to seduce, get as much as you can, all of that. Nothing having to do with future responsibilities for a person you're bringing into the world. And I want to bring Zhana into this conversation because she did a series on she did a program on what do women want. And women have all these things. Well, I want to be tall and rich, and you get that, and then you get some of the things like, well, I want to be trustworthy and honest and so forth. How do you instill those values? So, Zhana, thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to have you every first Wednesday. And give us some insight on what you have heard about men and what men want want men from perhaps other cultures? What have they said that they want?
Okay, well, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Yes, I hear the lovely voice of Zhana from London.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating because I've been sitting here and I've been enjoying actually listening to you guys speaking for the past more than an hour now, but I couldn't get on the call.
We're trying to hear your voice and like, oh.
Challenged quite a lot on this show. I really don't understand why, but I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it at some point.
Yes, we will.
But anyway, it's lovely to speak to you, lovely to hear your voice. It's lovely to finally be able to speak.
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, the thing is, at the moment, I'm mostly coming with questions rather than answers. So, I mean, I could tell you some of the things that I've heard people say or I've read. I talk about this book quite a lot. It's called Of Water and the Spirit. And it's written by a guy called Maladoma, and it starts with his childhood. He grew up in a situation where his grandfather was a very, very powerful and respected shaman. And then his grandfather died, and he got sent to I guess you'd say the divinity school. And his grandfather had said to him something terrible was going to happen and I can't protect you. And so he's talking about colonialism and what was actually done to people. And I think certainly in the States, I don't think that we really know much about colonialism at all and what was done to people in Africa. So it's fascinating. And then, I mean, I'm not going to say much about it right now because of lack of time, but he was basically tortured for years by priests. All the stuff that has come out about the Catholic Church in the past however many years, that was all happening in Africa as well. There's that. And then he came back to his community, and the only way he could be an adult in his community was to go through initiation, which was very dangerous. And the people in his community were saying to him, don't do it because you won't survive it, you'll die.
Oh, wow.
But he decided to do it anyway. And he's a man after my own heart, right? He thinks something is right, he's going to do it.
Wow.
So there was talks about that. But basically, that helped them. Earlier you guys were talking about rites of passage. Yeah? Having that process helped them understand what it meant to be a man in their culture, what it meant to take on male responsibilities, adult responsibilities. A lot of our men have been infantilized, as I think you guys touched on earlier as well.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's slavery. Keeping the black man was seen as a threat, and therefore they had to keep them infantilized in order to keep them from being dangerous, from being a threat, because black men were seen as a threat by the patriarchy and particularly by the white supremacists. Black men were seen as a threat. So how do you control that threat? How do you make things safe for white people? You have to control them. You have to treat them like children. You call them boys. And I mean, it's nothing new. A lot of people have written about this back in the 60s and 70s. People were writing about this, about how, a black man could not be considered a man. He had to be considered a boy. So there's all that stuff that goes on. And I think that the sexual, what is it called? The sexual...
revolution?
Irresponsibility.
Oh, irresponsibility. Yeah.
We're talking about a situation where people were told who to have sex with by the slave master. The slave master would say, well, go with this man or go with this woman. And they were required to do so. And my cat just decided this is a good time to pester me now to feed her. Thank you very much, sweetheart, but you're going to have to wait. Yeah.
Love
they
you,
were told
kids.
to sleep with because the slave master wanted certain people to be with certain people. And that kind of mentality is still there, where the men didn't have any responsibility for the children. They just slept with who they were told to sleep with, and they had no responsibility for the children. And so, these patterns go very, very deep in our experience as people in the diaspora. It's not just African Americans I'm talking about. The same thing happens in the Caribbean.
Yes.
And even someone like Bob Marley, for example, he had children by lots of different women. And that's part of a pattern that we still continue to see, unfortunately. So there's a lot of that. I always say this, we have a lot of healing to do as African people, as people of African heritage. We have a lot of healing to do. One day soon, Jude, who runs the Black Cinema Club, I've asked him to come on, we might do a recording and talk about, because he has a lot of cousins in Nigeria. So at some point he's going to come on, he's going to talk about what are the expectations of a man in Nigeria, what's expected of a man, and also what does a man expect? What does he want for his future? What does he want for his finances? What does he want for his relationships, his marriage, his children? What are the values and how are they the same in the West as they are in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria? How are they the same and how are they different? Some of our cultural traditions still survive. Others do not. But I mean, make no mistake, the Western system and the Western system of slavery,
it has impacted a lot of places.
They did a lot of damage to the Black family, and we're still having to repair that damage now.
Well, that's true. But something Michael Hameen said earlier about the fact that marriage, even with all of that, after slavery, African American people had the highest rate of marriage than any other ethnic group. So that was something that we repaired. But did the habits change? I mean, I got a question for Dr. Cartman, who's been doing, I guess, rites of passage kinds of things for people growing up in this culture. What do you include in your rites of passage as a way of them seeing what the responsibilities of a man are?
Well, connected to this idea of family, it's important for me to try to help young people position the family responsibility as a power decision and not a romantic decision. When we think about what we're up against and what it takes to repair, the beginning of us becoming more organized and structured, I think, has to begin with the basic element of family cohesion as a strategic piece in sort of this movement back towards reclaiming and rebuilding our communities. So we talk about, before we get into the healing work, into the repair work, we just spend a lot of time talking about what we're up against, helping them understand, unpack, develop systems analysis. A lot of them are kind of just like distracted. Our opposition has gotten really sophisticated in creating the comforts and the conveniences and the distractions. And so we all scroll all day, and so many dings and whistles and influencers and chatter and drama, so many things that keep us kind of preoccupied. And so it makes it hard to pause for a moment and just look around and see like, what's happening to us? So when I go in, I can come in and say, we losing bad, bro. Like this is not a time for us. We as a people, we as Black men, we are losing. And I try to sort of tap into that competitive edge that men come with, that we express often through sort of the symbolic wins of sports, or right now we got rap beefs, right? So people can understand sort of the Mamba mentality of Kobe Bryant, or the debate between Michael Jordan and LeBron James, because they compare their competitive spirit. They said, no, he wants to win real bad at a game. But to take that same desire to win, to be the best, to be the greatest of all time, to distill that into a desire for us as a people to win, requires a shift in like priorities. So that I do think that men have a natural desire to be the best. I think sometimes the young men I'm talking to, don't see how their position in the street, their position, they might be fighting to be a top gang within a prison system, right? But still not being aware that it's still just like a crumb, right? It's still just you still being played. You in your version of a idea of strength are still being puppeteered by a master. And so once we can sort of explain systems analysis, point to the powers that be, unfold what is happening, I think it becomes easier then to have a conversation about how can we rebuild? How can we compete for real? How can we create, cultivate a sense of community? And there's no way to do it without family. There's no way to do it without strong fatherhood. And so I enter the conversation there. When we talk about becoming men, having responsibility, to make them feel a little bit more uncomfortable about this servitude, this permanent status of being dependent. And then if I can get them to not want that no more, then they become open to like, okay, well, then now what? What do we do with that? How do we start to build economically? Family. How do we build socially? How do we protect children? Family becomes an answer to so many of the questions that they've experienced the problems because of, and they can see how in their life, if they had stronger families, they might not be in some of the predicaments they've got in. And so how do you repair the intergenerational harm done? You get to do that. You get to create a different family reality for your children, whether you got them or whether you plan to have them. And now let's talk about what does it mean to plan to have them. How do you position yourself to be the kind of father that you wish you had? How do you begin to develop the skill set to communicate with a woman and to commit and to invest and to just have even the desire to build something? We're there. We're still just trying to deal with young men shifting their taste for what they want from the pleasures, from the conveniences, from sort of the a boy like mindset.
Hold it up for just a second. I think you got a couple of responses there. So you were saying, Zhana, and then Michael's got a question. So Zhana, you were saying you wouldn't rely on your family just because the dysfunction, and I guess that's an issue also because
that's right, because of the dysfunction, the abuse, the trauma, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's taken me so many years to even acknowledge some of the things that have gone on and acknowledge the fact that it's abuse and trauma. It's taken many, many years. We were talking about this the other day in Black Cinema Club because I didn't grow up thinking I'm being traumatized. It took a long time for me to get to that point. And a lot of us, part of the problem as well is that we won't talk about it.
Yeah, I think that, you don't know that's what it is.
In our families.
Right,
So the healing can't really take place until we are willing to acknowledge what the problem is.
What is trauma? Well, that's a point. But and Michael, you had a question also. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question for both. And the nature of how human life is established, it comes in different from other mammals because it takes more time for a child to reach a state of somewhat independence. So my question has to do with the nature of that process and our teaching from that process that there is a debt. There's so much of this selfishness now. But to see that process in terms of a function that suggests to us and says to us that we owe human life because we couldn't care for our lives, but we had to have caretakers to take care of us. So it suggests, whether you have it in religious context or secular context, the suggestion of the process says we owe a debt rather than this idea of me.
Well, I think, yes. Well, one of the things I think is well, like Zhana was saying, when you come from trauma and you don't realize that's what it is, then that becomes normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the way people think you're supposed to raise a child. And we have this debate all the time. People say, well, you have to discipline a child. Discipline does not mean beating. It means guidance. And when the way you were raised, and culturally, the way we were raised with extreme verbal and physical abuse that was traumatizing.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of men even.
Where did that originate from? Because you think that sorry to interrupt you, Naima, but what happens with me, I get into a lot of arguments with Black people on both sides of the Atlantic, online and offline, because so many people tell me we have to be our children. It's part of our culture.
Yeah, you have to be
our culture.
Yeah.
It is learned behavior, and it was learned from slavery.
So I've run into a lot of.
That it's part of our culture is an insult to our culture.
And they don't know any. They don't know
our culture. It came from slavery.
Right, but they don't know any alternatives because they haven't seen any. And I know a lot of young men who want to be good fathers and say, well, look, you know, I take care of my little son. I beat his butt when he's bad. You know, I mean, and they feel like I'm being a good father because I'm beating him, I'm spanking him, I'm teaching him discipline, and this is what you have to do.
I mean, if you remember Will Smith when his first child was born, that's what he said. He said, I will, you know, in one of his songs, he was singing about his new little baby boy son, and he was saying, I will test that butt.
That's what men are taught is being a strong father.
A song about a newborn, and quite frankly, it's not the first time I've heard this kind of nonsense about a newborn, that it's his responsibility to beat the child in order to make the child behave the way he wants the child to behave. And I think a lot of it also comes from the European attitude that children are naturally evil. Right? And I don't think we have that in African traditions. I don't think we have this belief in African tradition that children are naturally evil. I think it's something, again, we learned from our oppressors.
So when we look at...
what do you think?
Well, you know, and Dr. Obari Cartman, of course, has been giving us some insight about how a lot of the experiences of our young people is affecting their behavior. But I think we have an opportunity to change a lot of what we have done. We've done some good things and we've done some horrible things. And we have to be able to admit the good that we did.
We've done a lot of good, but we've also caused further damage as well.
Yeah.
Which means there's more of a need for repair.
And so that means...
You know, our children behaving in a way that we don't like. I mean, in nonviolent communication, we say that everything we do is done in order to meet a need.
Yeah.
And everything that everybody else does is done in order to meet a need.
Right.
So we're not doing it because we're bad or because we're evil or because we don't listen, or, you know, if we're not listening, that means that there's a problem there. That there's a need that's being met by not listening.
Yes. So a lot of young...
From the premises that children are evil, which is what the Europeans believed until quite recently.
And a lot of religious teachings still teach that.
To beat that child, to beat the evil.
Beat the devil out of them. So then we have young men who are full of rage at being beaten, being verbally abused, called stupid, ugly, ignorant, all those things. That's part of what has made up their lack of self-esteem. The reason why, you know, you step on somebody's toe accidentally on a crowded bus and they're ready to kill you. So all of that anger and rage comes from bad parenting that was passed down for generations. So how do we heal that and develop men who can set a new standard for manhood of sensitivity to your children, guidance of your children, protection of your children, teaching of your children, and not, you know, I'm a father and therefore I'm going to beat them because that's what makes them a good boy or you're a good girl, whatever it is you think, you know, that beating does. But that's what a lot of men are thinking, well, this is what fathering is. And that's not it. Yeah. But that's what they may have received, or you know, their parents may have received.
If you don't know any better, then how are you supposed to be able to improve your your relationship, the way that you communicate with your children. And I have had people say to me, well, why should we? Because beating them works.
Yeah. So
it might work on a level because the child does what you want, but why is the child doing what you want? Not for a reason that I think, I'm happy about. It's because out of fear and out of self-hatred, the child will do what you want, but I don't see that person as a good result. I'm not happy with that.
So what have you observed?
It's even included in the gang culture. The gang culture.
That's how you get accepted in.
They beat you in.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
They beat the gang.
I know nothing about the gang culture at all, but I have heard that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is it.
This violence is pervasive. But I just like to introduce the idea of conversations that show not how much I know, but how much I care for you to understand yourself.
And we need to acknowledge the things that we don't know.
That's the hardest thing.
Because, it's not about having all the answers. It's about making an effort.
So, Dr. Cartman, what have you heard from young men when it comes to their experience, either with or without fathers in the home? And has sometimes the presence of perhaps an angry, violent father been more damaging than a father who was absent, but when he came around, at least he was kind? I mean, what have you observed from what they've said?
I mean, both. All of it is true. What I say in response to all of this is that more often than not, I am encouraged by the openness of young people to experience all of this in a different way, to learn something different than what they experienced. I find young men, even with the trauma they have had.
Hold on a second, Zhana. Hold on a second, Zhana.
Right? About this society and what happens to our young people in this society. How do they respond?
Yeah. Well, hold one thought, because Dr. Cartman was finishing a thought. Hold this 1 second. He was finishing a thought about that. Yeah.
I just really want to know.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Oh, so I think that the part of the work where we're talking about what to do now, how to repair, how to go forward. I think that if we create more spaces in sort of community-based ways, if we go into barbershops, if we connect with coaches, if we go to schools to a certain degree and just have these conversations as early as possible, middle school, high school, and to talk about preparing them for life. Like, it's really a life skill lesson. If we,
it's wonderful. Yeah.
There might have been, home ec a long time ago when you just taught kids how to live alone and how to cook and how to clean and how to just have basic life skills. I think that we have gotten so used to this culture of survival and then just barely making it that we're not preparing them for a long, full, productive life, because we don't think Black men deserve it. Like, so part of their worth is that we have to say that they're not just, a problem to deal with, but they are a full, robust resource, and that they are a vital part of the health and well-being of our communities. And when you think of something as worthy and important, you invest in that thing through education, programming. And so I think there needs to be a whole shift of us as the community saying that these are our gems. They're gold. They're not just a nuisance. And that's how they feel. We think about them as a nuisance. And then they feel that, and then they repeat that, and then they become the nuisance that we have sort of culturally decided they should be. But if we see them as precious jewels, then we pour into them, we invest in them, and that includes teaching them values and principles of life. And that includes, how do you be a good parent? How do you be a good steward of the community? How do you pay back that debt? How do you pay back your ancestral debts? How do you find joy, peace, and camaraderie? How do you just live life? And those are things that are all taught. And again, my experience is that young people are open to that. When you come and you don't come try to tell them what to do, you're not trying to wag your finger at them. You're not trying to judge them. You're not trying to say, what's wrong with you, boy? Let me tell you how to do this right. You're just saying, as an adult male, these are some things that I've learned in life, and I want to share with you out of love and compassion. If you're ready for it, here it is. If you don't want it yet, then I'll come back to you when you're ready. But I think there's a kindness that we can bring to the young people that they're open, they're ready, they're yearning for the guidance that we just not giving them. We too busy chastising them.
Yes, that's interesting. You said that they feel like we treat them like a nuisance. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Part of coming back, because the learning curve, and sometimes we have to bump our head a little bit, but letting them know that we'll be there when they're ready.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yes. So let me check the switchboard. I think we've got a couple of callers.
Oh, that young men say when you start laying it down for them about the reality of living in this society and the ways that our young people are treated. What are some of the reactions that you get from them?
Say that question one more time. I missed the beginning of it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, what was the question again?
Sorry, say that again?
Yes, yeah. You repeat the question.
Okay, yeah. Even technical difficulties, never mind.
We'll work on it.
What I asked was, when you start laying it down for the young people and saying, this is what happens in our society. This is how our young people are treated. This is how we are treated as a people. What kinds of things do they say?
I'll say what I hear more often than not. The two things that I hear over and over again when I do rites of passage programming, when we're doing wellness education, life skills training, the thing that I hear more often than not is no one ever told me that before, or I never thought of it that way.
Right. Yeah.
Those are two things I hear over and over again. And that's not a kid problem. That's not a kid problem. If no one ever told you this before, that is a community problem. That's a family problem, a school problem, a church problem. That's the infrastructure problem. That's an ecosystem problem. That's not a kid problem. But by the time you 15, 16, 20, this should not be the first time someone broke down systemic racism to you and showed you how it lives in the music and in the food. I shouldn't be telling you that for the first time as a grown young man. You should have been seeing that and being reminded of that over and over again in your life. But if we are talking about a system designed to keep them infantilized, right, to try to keep them stuck and stagnant, then I'm not surprised by that. But that becomes an observation that we must make collectively and then remedy that. They should be hearing about history. They should be hearing about culture. They should be hearing about economics. They have a very narrow view of racism, in my experience. They think about it as somebody calling you the N-word, maybe the police, maybe somebody following them in the store. And that's the extent of how they see systemic racism expressing itself in 2024. I think that they still have in their minds real racism is back in the old days when they had the white-only water fountains. But we have not done a good job of keeping up with the sophisticated ways that the racist sort of policies and practices express themselves in the everyday lives of all of us. And so it becomes harder to see, but those of us that see it have to find ways to distill that and then teach it.
Who almost never talked about racism. So I really was not prepared to handle, the real world, but there were reasons for that. I think they thought that if we don't talk about racism, then it won't affect the children. I mean, I think it's naive. That's what I think they were thinking.
I think we have to find a way to share what happened and what is happening with the point of view of this is what you are going to be empowered to change, because you're going to be the one that shapes the society that you live in the future. And so prepare yourself with knowledge and skills, because this is basically your job to make the world as it should be. But we need to let them know why they're experiencing certain things, even like the racism in the music industry that will put money behind music and lyrics that encourage violence or degenerating treatment of women and yourself, rather than encourage and continuously promote the positive lyrics that talk about love and God and all of these things, for them to see that you're being played, like you say, you're being Oh, I think you might have accidentally hit a button there, Brother Mike, on your switchboard. But one of the things that I mean, I even observed in high school students when I was teaching, and I was listening to some of the lyrics that they were, had in the earphones. They listened to it, and they said, let me hear what you listen to. And it was so horrific. I nearly burst out in tears. I'm like, this is what they're being programmed in their brains, and they don't know that this is part of the racism to steer you towards self-destruction, and then other people toward success and control and control of finances and industry and manufacturing, and they're steering you in a way that is guaranteed you're going to feed the prison system. Do you see that? So, like you say, if nobody ever says that and is never discussed, and they're not empowered to change it by the decisions that they make. First of all, I'm going to make a solid family decision. It's like you said, none of this is going to be fixed until we fix that foundation, which is the family. Yeah. And if a young man understands his decisions of who he gets involved with on an intimate level and how that manifests for his future, then he can make better decisions. I know too many young men in their 20s that are already in the system for child support, and with somebody that they didn't really want to be with, but now she had a baby and now I got to pay. Well, all of that was in your power to control, but nobody told you that. Yeah. So there you have it. And we've got a couple of callers on the line as well. They want to chime in, but what are your thoughts about that?
I think that young men are probably aware that they can get someone pregnant. It's not like they need someone to tell them that. I'm sure that they tell that, but still, there's irresponsible behavior, and I personally think that goes back generations because of the oppression, the oppression, things to do with slavery. It's a very, very deep-seated pattern. Anyway, that's my opinion.
I mean, self-management of one's sexual impulse is at the foundation of what is going to happen with the rest of your life. And now you can, if you teach that to girls, but don't teach that to boys, that's still not going to work. All of us have to understand we are building a future. We're building a community. We need you to make decisions that are going to strengthen the collective. And that is an understanding that has to be taught before puberty, before your hormones are out of whack. And then you can't have a society that's constantly throwing sex at you and then say, but don't do this. Well, you're selling every product in the world by arousing people's sexual impulses so they can buy a product. So we can't be contradictory about it.
Young guys who they want to play, sports, they want to play in the NBA or in the NFL, and if they are fortunate enough to get into that situation, then they basically have everything, right? Everything, the whole world is at their feet. So then where's the incentive to behave responsibly?
But that's a very small number of our young people, and they aspire many of them to that. But the statistics are that very few are going to be able to get into that level. But there's so many issues that we have to address.
Well, like what? Yeah, let me take a caller here.
They still want to be, but they still aspire to be. If you see what I mean.
And there's nothing wrong with aspiring success in sports or entertainment. The thing is, what do you envision you're going to do with your financial success? Are you being steered toward building your community, or are you being steered toward exploiting people, exploiting women? I mean, what are the values with which you bring that wealth? Because wealth can be a source of destruction, as we're seeing, if you don't have the right values. Let me open the mic for area code 773-436.
Why do they aspire to those things? That's what I would ask. But then you have someone like Prince. He never told people when he was alive how much money he was giving to the community.
Right.
How much he was contributing to the community. It was amazing. I have so much respect for him.
And a lot of people do. A lot of people who have wealth, they are making a difference. Well, we got a caller on the line. Area code 773-436. Give us your name, where you're calling from, and your question or comment for Dr. Obari Cartman. Go right ahead.
Well, I have
Greetings, global transformers. Barry and Mariah. Mama D from Chicago.
Hey, Mama D from Chicago.
Really. You know, it is written in the Black History Bible book whose hero is a woolly-haired man with bronze-colored feet to match his bronze-colored face. Destroy the wicked with a rod in your mouth. Also, if you beat him with the rod, he will not die. If you beat him with the rod, you will save his soul. Now, these are the two main types of discipline. You can discipline a child and realize that when you are a child, you think like a child. You reason like a child. But when you become a man, you're supposed to give up those childish ways. But too many men have been raised up with social wild oats and use sex as recreation instead of sex with responsibility. So maybe this is because they were not trained up in the proper way. So I think that if they got in touch with a child that is in them and parent that child, take an honest look at that child and parent him, parent yourself, I think you'd have a different perspective on how to parent your children. What do you think?
Thank you, Mama D. Wise words. Yes. Well, Dr. Cartman, what do you hear from young men when it comes to what they say they want, or what they wish they could have gotten in their homes in terms of love, nurturing, those kinds of things, which I think a lot of times is really where the sexuality comes from. There's always a desire for love and closeness, but there's just not an understanding of how to put it together and make it fit in terms of family life. So I want to feel love. I want to feel like I'm loved. Maybe I didn't get that from my mother or my father. What do you hear from young men that are telling you about that?
I don't necessarily always hear it articulated directly, but it's what you're saying. It's what you're describing. They won't say, "I wish that I had more love and compassion as a kid." You just see the lack of it. It just shows up as what we might label as dysfunction or anger. And they might not even have the awareness themselves that is what they're searching for, because they're kids and they've been kids their whole life, and so all they know is what they know. We have normalized a certain neglect and lack and meanness in their houses. The way Sister was describing just how traumatic her childhood was, and then you see it later when you go back and go, oh wait, that wasn't what you're supposed to do to people. But when I'm meeting them, when they 12 to 20, they're just expressing it. They're just showing up. And then I get to put the words in their mouth that they're searching for something. They're just looking for security. I hear what you're saying, but that's not what you really mean. And so part of it is to help shape their understanding of themselves by sort of not responding to the behavior that shows up, and then try to look for the meaning and the source of it. And I think that's the work of a caring community.
60 seconds.
Well, we've only got a minute left, but I want to make sure people can, yes, thank you so very much. I want to thank Michael Hamid for sitting in for our co-host Kareem Hamid. You've been fantastic. We thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And of course, we're going to be hearing from Zhana every first Wednesday of the month. Thank you so much. We're going to get that sound system together because we want to hear your lovely voice. I just love your accent. And thank you so much, Dr. Obari Cartman. Yes, absolutely. Now, yes. So, Dr. Cartman, give us your website address.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you very much. Our callers and particularly our guests and our co-hosts.
Yes.
And I will be back. And
all right.
June. God,
all right.
Already.
Yes, time flies. We'll see you then. Thank you so very much. And it's drobaricartman.com.
Yes, that's me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
thank you for having me. It's been a lovely conversation. Look forward to seeing y'all again soon.
All right. We'll see you soon, and enjoy the rest of your day, and continue to be a source of light for those who might still be in the darkness. We'll see you next time.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Zhana. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, Ngiyabonga. Senegal, Jaref. Kenya, Asante. Israel, Toda. Pakistan, Shukriya. Afghanistan, Tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.